back here for part 2 of cognitive restructuring. So in part 1, we went to my garden and we saw that I used the metaphor that our minds are kind of like good thoughts, like healthy carrots, and then bad thoughts, like weeds. And so we talked about how to weed out the bad thoughts by calling them out, put them on a thought record, and then restructure them to make balanced thoughts. I'm going to show you 2 other ways of managing our thoughts. So remember that cognitive triangle. We're still working on thoughts to change our feelings and behaviors. You saw how the thought record could change our feelings. Now, another tool that you can use is a little more in depth if we really want to root out. Remember when I pulled off the plant and I just got the leaves? That's like a sticky note, just saying, feel good, be happy. It doesn't last very long. The root is there, weeds are gonna grow. What we wanna do is get that shovel in there, loosen up the ground, get the root out so we can put in a healthy seed and grow some more positive thoughts. So here's a deeper tool for changing that belief. If you've heard of this stuff before, you might know it as a core belief. The deep root is like a core belief. Here's the tool, evidence. Let's look at the evidence in our life for the new, healthier thought. In the example in part 1, we talked about how counting in third made someone feel like a loser. We looked at the evidence for and against, and we came up with a healthier, believable thought that I may not be the best, but I'm actually pretty good. And that ended up making us feel happy. All right, well, we can take that and we can go deeper to change that root. Here's how. So what we're going to do is take a life history. Sometimes I'm working with teenage clients who are 15, and so their life history is going to go from when they were a baby to when they're 15. I've worked with adult clients who are much older, and so their life history is going to be more broad. I'm going to use an example of someone who's 22, so college age, transitioning into professional sports. And let's say that 22-year-old still struggles with, even though they're an Olympic contender, maybe they're still struggling with confidence. Believe it or not, in sports psychology, it's Olympic level athletes who lack the most confidence. And that's probably because you've moved up to another level and now the competition's even greater, and we can have something called imposter syndrome. So if we've got imposter syndrome, we think, maybe I don't deserve to be here. If I've got imposter syndrome, maybe I think it was a fluke and they're going to figure out they made a mistake. I need to change that. I might need to change that to a belief of I do belong. So let's say I want to establish a new core belief that I do belong here. Let's look at a life history. So if you're 22, then I'm going to say let's start looking at when you were maybe before you were 4 years old. And then maybe when you were, say, 5 to 7 years old. And then maybe 8 to 12, 13 to 17. And then let's go 18 to 20. And then maybe in the last couple of years. If you're 15, we're probably breaking it down into 2-year increments. If you're 60, we're probably breaking this down into decades. Now, what I want you to do is think of examples of I do belong. So let's say I'm working with a golfer, and the golfer now is getting to play at a really high level, but they're doubting some of that self-confidence. So what we might be looking at, maybe they didn't start golfing till they were about 6 or 7. Okay, so is there any evidence from when you were little that you actually belong? And they may say, I can't think of anything right now. That's okay, hold that thought. But let's say they started golfing at the age of 7 and they won their first tournament. I'm going to write that down. And then we'll work through their life, 8 to 12. What's some examples? Well, maybe I got promoted up in the ranks, or I got recruited to a team, or an elite coach accepted me as a client. And so we'll write down those examples all the way up until the current day. And so if that golfer is struggling with believing they belong, Or maybe this is a tennis player who's made it to a higher level. Doesn't matter what the sport is. Then I made it to this level, and then we're probably going to be thinking about, what is the evidence? Does anyone make it? Do you just show up? Do they pull your name out of a hat? Well, no, I actually had to qualify by doing X, Y, and Z. Great, let's write that down. And so we write that down. This is something that I send my clients home with for homework. It's really important to recognize that if I want to plant a new seed, if I want to get rid of an old core belief that was negative, like I don't belong or I'm a loser, I might need to be pulling that weed out a couple times. I might need to dirty up the soil, get that shovel in there to get it out, but I want to replace it with a healthy seed, and I need to nurture it. So the same individual, maybe they're interviewing some people in their lives. Maybe it's a parent, maybe it's an old coach, and it can be really powerful to have a conversation with somebody who knows you, to say, what did you think when I was a kid? Did you think that I was very persistent or very good? And then what they tell you, the stories they tell you, can be part of your evidence. So use that, and that can help you grow, not just a positive thought, but a new, healthier, believable core belief. Good job. Look for this sheet on my website, sportspsychdoc.com.